Pokemon tangent.
Where'd I put it at? There we go. There we go. And I think I got it starting now. Alright, so, Captain's Log. Stardate, now. I've seemed to come across these very strange people calling themselves Riders of the Lost Sword. Right, so, Captain's Log. Stardate, now. Sulu has been really getting flirtatious with Isamu, the one called Isamu, for absolutely no reason. I had to set phasers to Spritz Bottle to get him off. And the same thing could be done to the other ones that were drooling over Allura. Well, Frozen Traveler just decided to annoy the crap out of Spock, asking him very illogical questions. Spock really wanted to smack him upside the head. Hey, people. Yeah. We're covering Star Trek today.
And being that, we couldn't help ourselves. We're not just covering all of Star Trek, we're covering the Next Generation episodes, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1 and 2. It was Andy's suggestion for our random podcast of the week.
Oh, yeah! Snap into some Star Trek, oh, yeah.
And honestly, this was really good.
Yeah, it not only has it been something that's kind of been lasting within Star Trek, those specific stories, they've re-released them as theatrical releases, like the whole thing is almost a feature film. It pretty much set the standard for pretty much every season finale Star Trek has done since then, essentially, too.
So they've all become really big openers and enders for each season, then.
Well, really,
good or bad.
TNG did it, Voyager did it a little bit, but really DS9, like they did it, but it wasn't a part 1, part 2 thing. It was just like the end of one season reveals to you the myriad of possibilities for the next one, and we just won't talk about Enterprise.
Right. That's more like what you're seeing. What you did with DS9 was kind of what you do with like a lot of current shows, where it'll leave it very open ended and cliffhanger-y ish, but like the next one never says like part 2. It wasn't like the same thing. Yeah,
it's a cliffhanger, but it's also a self-contained.
Right.
Okay.
But it's definitely solidly unresolved. Now, Voyager did the Next Generation one, and every Next Generation season from then on did a part 1 episode, leaving it ridiculously cliffhangered, and then and usually not writing the second part, which sometimes led to very strange shifts in tone from part 1 to part 2.
Like, I can understand not writing the second part because it's a part of next season and you might not have the okay to take extra hours and write it. But that just seems like it could lead to issues with obviously tone and writing and just getting the general feel back for that type of the episode.
It did on Voyager a lot.
Well, that's Voyager.
I know it did. It did on Next Generation too, because I would say Redemption, yeah. Even more so Descent. I don't think they had any idea where they were going to go with that one. Yeah.
I mean, that was just kind of what the fuck is going on here.
If everyone else can't tell, these two are the people who know Star Trek. I'm kind of a budding virgin, and I think this show took Frozen Traveler's star share.
Well, no. I did not... Okay, I'm going to say this. I did not like watching it.
Which is fine. I mean, everyone has their own taste on everything. You don't have to like everything, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not going to save me from the commenters. But anyway...
Well...
We have commenters?
So many angry commenters.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't like all the politicalness of it. I didn't really care for the
I hate to interrupt. I just want to ask real fast. What do you mean by politicalness?
We really can't be doing this. This is against regulation. And I don't know what regulation is.
So instead of what you meant more was kind of the
military talk,
militarization of it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay.
A little bit of both, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, there's a military talk, but there's also the ambassador, this guy, he's doing stuff, and we're not really caring for it. Trying to negotiate with him.
To kind of interrupt you a little bit again, what you're describing to me though is not this episode though, because this is very the anti-episode for this, except for the first part. Because the first part does have a lot of that build up, and they're doing things like that, but this one has no negotiations. Well, they brought back almost a monster, because they were. I mean, this was a threat that was. Well, you find out they said kind of was actually introduced in the first season, if you believe that, but
very, very vaguely.
Yeah, but never by name, and then shown in the second season, and then they kept trying to bring it back. But this was ones that the whole point of this one was you couldn't negotiate with the Borg.
Yeah, they didn't care. They wanted you, and they were either going to take you or kill you.
Yeah, I completely got that part. I mean, I may not be well versed in Star Trek, but I do know of it, and also some parts of the Futurama episode where they go to the Star Trek planet kind of filled me in a few places.
That was a funny episode.
Yeah, the forbidden,
where no fan has gone before.
Yeah.
Although the funny thing is, my favorite part of that entire episode is the 3 seconds Jonathan Frakes is in it.
Yes,
when they
first place.
Yes, front row.
And I'm pretty sure that's actually him.
It is. It is.
I couldn't be 100%, and I haven't seen it in a while to check the credits. So I was like, that really sounds like Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, it is, because he goes, yes, front row, and I'm like, yeah, it really was Jonathan Frakes.
I was just waiting to hear Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction. Please tell me one of you watched that show.
No.
I love TV. I would watch it. I would watch the marathons on Sci-Fi.
I liked it. I just thought it wasn't groundbreaking or anything. I was just like, oh, this is cool. It's like little vignettes, different stories. It's like, I can get into this.
Yeah, I just like that we're like, oh, did we get you? No. And it's kind of funny whenever I see Frakes show up on something, because he does so much directing that he does cameos and all this stuff now. What was I watching? I think it was either Librarians or Leverage, which I just realized I'm just, but
I've heard good things about that.
Is it as good as I hear?
I love it.
Okay.
Which I just realized I'm 2 weeks behind on it, though.
There's a few Librarian movies and different series.
This is the third season that's airing right now. Okay. The movies are not super important. I think there's 2 or 3 of them. But because most of the characters from the movies are not in the show. They're referenced, and you kind of need to know of them, but they're not, the librarian from those movies is barely in the show.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember what it was. It wasn't the Librarians that I saw him in, because I was watching Leverage. That was the show I saw him in, because he used to direct that as well.
Yeah, but I can definitely tell from the Star Trek, these guys were acting like this may be our final season or something like that.
I think a lot of the tone, and Rob and I have talked about, or I'm sorry, Nossan and I have talked about this in the chat. Nobody really knew if Patrick Stewart was coming back, so I think that kind of played into the finality tone of it, because they really didn't know, and that's why some things happened, and that we'll get into in a little bit.
Well, what I think it was more was they wrote it without knowing if he was coming back, because his contract was up. But my understanding is by the time they actually filmed it, they pretty much knew that he was coming back.
Yeah, I thought it was over the summer hiatus when they knew he was going to come back.
No, I can't find anything that says that. I mean, it could be true, but I can't find anything to support that other than his contract was up at the end of the third season.
Thank God he came back, though.
It was kind of funny. Is one of the things I was thinking about is imagine if he doesn't. Okay, if he doesn't come back and they actually do kill Picard in that episode.
So we'd have universe and parallels where Worf is the first officer and.
Well, unless they catch Sheldon.
Wesley.
Well, mostly. Well, if you go by how this episode, how these two episodes would be working, Picard would be a part of the Borg, or probably like the head leader of it. Well,
I mean, there are a couple different ways this can go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is backed up by an episode later on. They could either have Picard as the leader of the Borg and destroy the entire Federation,
or headpiece,
or
remember the Borg is more. Remember, the Borg is kind of a hive mind. You would have have Picard be like the headpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and not
that
exactly
was
the leader.
You know what's funny about that is in this episode they kept talking about him as not so much as like they were not just using him to beat them. It's like they wanted him to be like their spokesperson. They wanted him to be the reason like that he was convincing people to surrender. That never ever happens again in any Borg episode or movie.
The closest we get was 7 of 9, and in some of the books which aren't canon, so we're obviously not counting that, they do it.
Yeah.
But in no canon production after this, do they ever try that again? Because
No, in fact,
look what happened.
No, because what they did is they decided that instead, because even in this episode, they were talking about their culture being like adapted to service us. Like they weren't even I don't even think they used the "you will be assimilated" in this.
They did not.
They did,
They didn't assimilate in this.
Right, which is something that came up pretty much after this. They came up with the concept of, they liked having this thought of Locutus, which, by the way, they never name another Borg again for the longest time, except for Hugh.
Hugh's a Borg?
Hugh?
Well, yeah.
That's a one episode. That was, no, not Q. Hugh, H-U-G-H.
Oh.
Well, he's in 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah. But you find it funny that as soon as they went to First Contact, it's like those 3 episodes never happened.
Yeah.
Or did they ever bring back that other design for the Borg ship?
The giant cube.
You talking about the one from Descent?
Yeah, that really weird,
yeah. It kind of reminded me of something from Star Fox.
A little bit. It also made me think of a Star Wars ship, actually, whenever I saw it.
I could see that.
Yeah,
now, we were talking about assimilation. I'm trying to remember the first time they actually mentioned that. They mention assimilation in the episode with Hugh, don't they? Because that's a Picard tell him, you're going to help me assimilate these
Geordi.
people.
Yeah, it's like, you'll assimilate. No, Geordi would rather die than be assimilated. And, But, they talk about it in this one. It's all, your culture will adapt to service us.
They don't explicitly say you're going to become a Borg.
Right, because it went from the first episode of Q Who, where all they were interested in was the technology. Like, even they don't care about you. They just want your technology.
It kind of gave you the impression that they were a culture, and that's what they did.
Right.
It wasn't we just pretty much eat everything we find.
Yep, then they became zombies.
Space Nazis.
Space zombies.
Space zombies. Or space Nazis. Space
zombies?
I mean, they are zombies.
Yeah, and think about it.
I could go on a tangent on this and prove myself correct.
What, the Nazi idea?
I got a text with the word Nazi in it.
Oh.
I got my wires crossed. I mean, they are trying to take everything over.
But
and
again,
they indiscriminately destroy things.
But they do it from the perspective of, we're doing it to actually help you.
Yeah, they actually think they're helping by doing this.
I don't know. The last 5 worlds seem to disagree.
But they became one with the Borg, and now they're part of the Voice.
Exactly.
And the Voice is good.
Meh.
What?
I'm just talking about that one voice for the longest time, the Borg voice.
Oh, where it was just many talking as once. Yeah.
And you just saw like that really deep chamber, and it was just a voice.
Yeah, which I thought was cool.
I was gonna say that is a cool effect because it really lent credence to there's not really an individual here; it's just all of them.
Which, to go on a tangent on Star Trek, which was I thought the biggest mistake of First Contact.
The Queen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the actress did a really good job, but the idea of it, no, that's not what the Borg are. That is probably the biggest weakness they could have besides not having honor nor courage.
Right, yeah.
I'm guessing originally they're trying to think of a beehive mind.
Well, that's what they were doing, like bees or ants or something like that, but they didn't have the budget to really convey something like that, so they became, quote-unquote, space zombies.
But the other part of it...
the hive.
Yeah, but the part of it was the whole thing was there is no individuals you work with in Unity. You get rid of the whole thoughts and concepts of of just what one person, where one person can make a mistake. Okay? If you have trillions of voices together and they work as one unit, then you don't have the emotional or crazed thoughts of what just one person would do. And that totally.
I think they actually say that in Q Who. It's either this part 1 or Q Who that they say one person can make a mistake, but multiple people probably wouldn't make that same mistake in unison.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, committee decisions can be their own problems because I funny enough, I'm pretty sure they added, in fact, I know this just from some things I read, the only reason they added a queen is because the production staff wanted a villain.
Yeah, like a direct, like a embodiment of a villain.
Yeah.
The headpiece, like I said before.
Yeah, they wanted something to be a direct opposition, not just a fourth.
I think the movie would have been the movie was good, but it would have been better without the Queen.
Would have been better without the time travel too, but that's a different story.
I'm not even dissing the time travel because we got Zephyr Cochrane.
Have you ever read some of the early because one of the mandates was they wanted to do time travel in that movie.
I know one of them they wanted to go to like the Renaissance.
Exactly.
That would have been cool.
And Patrick Stewart, really? I think it would have been ridiculous because Patrick Stewart said, "I'm not wearing tights again."
But he did in Cupid, and he was Robin Hood.
Yes, but that was before. That's why when he got the First Contact, he said he wasn't wearing tights.
I know.
Again. Yeah. But to get back to this, one of the things in Best of Both Worlds that I think gets lost later on in the show is the music.
Oh, yeah. I don't think even in other Borg episodes, that they don't really use the music from this, and the level of the music itself, to me, doesn't get this good again. Well, even in the series finale.
Do you know the production?
No, I can't off the top of my head.
He thought the music was distracting. He fired Ron Jones, who did the music for this. He thought the music was distracting overall. Like one of the things in this one, the scene where Picard goes in front of the view screen, he goes like we have encountered the Borg, and it has that big, huge orchestra hit and the choral, like kind of electronic choral. Yeah, they did not want that. They did not want the choral in that. They thought it was distracting. He also thinks in general of music as being, I can't remember the term he used for it. It's something like it's necessary, but it also shouldn't be like its own thing. So the rest of the show has this very boilerplate kind of nothing elevator generic music sound, which is why. I mean, there's still some there's exceptions, but for the most part, you don't get a full score. Just to its detriment, because some of the episodes needed it.
Like, I understand what he's saying. Music should work in harmony with the rest of the show, but shouldn't overpower it. But that's no reason to take all the goddamn good music away. A good score empowers everything going on.
I mean, heck, how many times have you seen that the sting from Part 1 used in something else? The to be continued one with I mean, they used it on Family Guy a couple of times. I've seen it used in other references.
Did they use it in the other TNG cliffhangers, or was it more just like a subdued little? what are we gonna do, Tone? Because I honestly can't remember.
I'm just telling you like things I've seen it used outside of Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah, like I mean, I know
Yeah,
Family
like you
Guy
said, I
did
know
it.
it's been in Family Guy.
Yeah.
Oh. I know a couple of YouTubes did.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I don't think it's being used because it's Star Trek. I think it's being used because it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good piece of cliffhanger music to keep suspense music.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I mean, Star Trek was my gateway drug, if you want to put it that way. Like, it was my first science fiction show. It was my first, and then that led into fantasy and everything. But yeah, that it's my gateway drug. So that's why I'm so passionate about it.
See, I would be this passionate too, but when you have parents that try to force this onto you, I couldn't get into it.
You had that. Okay.
No. The thing is, well, I had something else with another franchise that could be considered a rival to this, Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When Episode 1 hit, and I had really liked the movie, being a stupid, I don't know, what was that, 99?
Yep.
Yeah.
6-year-old kid, very stupid. I thought everything was flashy and neat. My parents decided to try to get me into collecting for Star Wars.
Kids can't collect things; they want to open them.
Yeah. And my grandma's giving me this stuff, and like, oh, cool, look at that, free stuff. And I open up the packages, and she's like, no, you're not supposed to be doing that. Why? It's a toy.
Yeah, well, that was also the 90s. Jeez, I remember this from because, not showing my age, but I'll try not to. But I just remember because the 90s, there were a couple things that came out in, not like movies per se, but a couple things that happened in like the late 80s, early 90s. And that was, some people started selling some stuff, and it was ridiculously getting a lot of money. So everything in the 90s all of a sudden became collector's covers, collector's editions, collector's like variant covers on comic books. And the thing was, everyone was like, no, you have to keep it in its box because now it's going to be valuable. They didn't realize that it was valuable because it was rare. You can't make everything and say it's going to be valuable and have it actually be valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what turned me off from Star Wars, is that all the collecting that just kind of I couldn't deal with it. And this kind of brings back those thoughts of, oh no, I just can't get into this at all if it's going to be like that.
Yeah, and then although I don't know if Andy, you had this problem as well. Were you still in the era of you had to be a fan of Star Wars or Star Trek?
I was sort of like my mom didn't just like seclude me, but like I lived in a really small town. I didn't have a bunch of friends, so I wasn't really part of popular culture at that time. So I knew of that, but I liked both. And I'm actually very grateful for Star Wars because that's when we got the Star Trek movies, and that's how the series continued. So I've always been a fan of both.
See,
and when somebody asked me, I was just like, no.
I wasn't, which is why I didn't see Star Wars until I was almost graduated high school.
Really?
Yeah. I did not see Star Wars until they released the special editions in theaters.
So
my God. Year that was. I had never seen...
Had, not have. Just to clarify that one.
Okay, thank you. I'm not writing it, so grammar is less important. You don't know that I spelled every word in that sentence.
What's spelling?
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking. But no, and then I had the special edition on VHS when it came out on VHS. But up until that point, I had seen like the scene of like the Death Star blowing up, or like I had like picture books of Return of the Jedi, but to actually say I saw the movies, no, I had not watched any of the movies till they came out on those special edition theaters, which is why it's so funny to me. Like, that's why I never cared about the changes, because I never saw the original.
Han shot first.
Which was, I was told they were, and the funny thing was, is when someone said Han shot first, I was like, when? And they went, oh, in the canteen. I was like, He didn't shoot first. I don't even remember. It's funny. It's like, to me, it was like such a non-factor scene. It was like, okay, the guy was dead. It didn't matter to me one way or the other. Someone had to explain to me why that mattered.
I still don't think
Andy, George Lucas.
but that's me.
I don't know, just what it was. You were either a Star Trek fan or you were a Star Wars fan.
Like I said, I remember hearing a lot about that. I never had to worry about it.
Did you?
I think
you were in a smaller town. I wasn't. Maybe that's part of it too.
Probably.
The most of the Star Wars v Star Trek debate I've ever seen was in the movie Fanboys, where they all got into a fight.
And that's just craziness. Why can't everybody just get along and like your respective franchises if you don't like the other?
And that's kind of what's happened now, which is kind of funny because I appreciate now, like, liking those things now is not the stigma it was in the time period I grew up in, with them not saying those years.
The 1920s.
No, we're not going back that far. But like, I would like for the record, Star Wars is older than me. Okay, I don't want anyone thinking about that. Okay, and Empire Strikes Back is older than me too. But in that time period though, you didn't have the internet to connect to people. So when you were the only one that you really wanted to talk about liking Star Trek, you had to be careful so you didn't get beat up.
You're like Star Trek, you little nerd.
Yeah,
we got our lightsabers, so we're gonna beat the crap out of you.
Oh no! It wasn't even from that. It was from the ones who like didn't watch any of it. You're like nerd, and then you got hit with bricks. But like,
could a lightsaber deflect a phaser beam?
Probably.
Most likely.
It wasn't a real question.
I mean,
could be.
That's why there are so many arguments over which one of those are more powerful, and I'm like, I don't care.
Just for the record, it's lightsabers.
Like, just to interject, Rob, about what you were saying a second ago about culture and stuff.
Yeah.
The culture itself really has changed. Like you were saying earlier, you didn't really talk about that stuff in a certain day and age. You didn't really make that stuff known unless you wanted to get, harassed in some way. And now, like me, for instance, I go around work, I'll speak Klingon sometimes just to make people laugh. Everybody knows that I'm probably the biggest nerd they're ever going to meet. And if they ever have like a video game question, sci-fi, something like that, they just come to me. And
nowadays, it's more acceptable to be nerdy, probably because some people understood everyone's nerdy just about different things. Like,
exactly.
Like
anyone
hunting.
who plays fantasy football has no right to say shit on anyone who plays a tabletop game.
I've had
It's pretty much the same damn thing.
Or anyone who complains about cosplaying but wears a sports jersey.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, motherfucker, you're cosplaying as Terrell Owens. You still relevant?
Yeah.
No, he retired.
I've tried to convince my buddy playing fantasy football to put on his chainmail boots of defending, but he didn't go for it.
Or to start three elves and a dragon.
He would have won the game at that point.
Although my favorite fantasy football joke will forever and always be The Simpsons, where she drafted 6 kickers because it's called football.
See, I actually...
I get that joke. Or I get that.
I understood that reference.
There we go. The man is playing Galaga. He didn't think we'd see him, but we did. Dude was really playing Galaga, too.
Yes, he was. You can see it in the scene before.
Like, I even noticed in the theaters, I was like, that extra looks really fucking surprised in this scene. And then I read later that he was really playing Galaga.
And then I like the fact is that he just goes back to playing Galaga.
He just turns around and keeps doing it. Oh, Iron Man.
Not to go on another tangent, but is he not the best alcoholic stepdad that we all want to impress in the new Spider-Man movie?
I can't wait for the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's going to be in that movie much less than people think.
Oh, no, he's going to be in maybe the climax and maybe 10 minutes of the beginning, or at least a shot at the end of them going together.
Is this going to be the cinematic debut of Iron Spider?
No.
Nah, that might be in like Avengers 4 or something, maybe.
Or the fact that they already announced the next Spider-Man movie when it's going to be out.
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, they already announced there's going to be the sequel to Homecoming is going to be coming out in 2019.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, it was released that different news was released like the day before they released the trailer.
Oh, so no one remembered. But
yeah.
It was the way they shot it with him and Pete. It's like Pete wants to impress his new daddy. That's only because Iron Man wants to sleep with his hot aunt.
Yeah, that was weird. And isn't she supposed to be in her 70s, 80s?
It changes. Sometimes sometimes
it's
60s, sometimes it's 50s, sometimes it's 70s. They always drew her as older in the comics.
I've never seen her this young, but you can be any age and be an aunt to a kid, and I'd rather have a young one that's easily explained than an old one that looks like she's literally going to die every 10 minutes. So all the decisions with like, oh, I need to sell my soul to get her to come back to life when she looks like she's going to die in 2 weeks. Don't sound dumb.
You know, the funny thing is they always complain about being that old. Marissa Tomei's older than most people think.
Really?
Yeah, because
she's in her
50s.
I think she's like 51 or 52. She's not that young.
I mean, wouldn't stop Iron Man, wouldn't stop me.
I mean, because if you think about it, she goes back to movies back in like the 90s. So
I think she was in some shit in the 80s too.
Yeah, I think you're right too. She is 52.
Okay. Still, she looks much younger than that.
Oh yeah, but that's the other part about making it now is someone in 2016 who's in their 50s, I hate to say it, is going to make an effort to look a lot younger too.
Yeah. Oh, it's true as hell.
Yeah, that's also a little bit of a cultural thing as well. Because you got to remember, Robert Downey Jr.'s in his 50s too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because wasn't he in, I may be thinking of him or another actor, but I think he was in one of the horror movies back in the 80s.
Probably. He did a lot of work in the 80s.
I want to say Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's Johnny Depp.
All right.
Yeah, that was his debut.
Yeah, he got sucked in through the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the funny thing I noticed also was because watching this got me watching First Contact again. Because First Contact is the sequel to the Best of Both Worlds. And then, like, the people that showed up in First Contact, like, I even messaged you, I was like, holy crap, that's Damien Dark from Arrow and, like, Dum Dum Dugan from Captain America. Like, they're way too young to be in this stuff. And, like, it's amazing when I mean, Star Trek is amazing for watching and having, like, random people who get up getting huge later show up.
Like Whoopi
It's
Goldberg.
one of the strangest things.
No, she was already big.
She
by
was
the time
already.
she did
Oh.
this.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a big deal. They got her in this, and then the
Yeah.
funny thing is, though, her character. I hate her character. I really do. Guinan kind of annoys the heck out of me. Because,
I was going to say, she was like the most boring part of this.
she was Troy. I mean, literally, she was what Troy was supposed to be.
I thought she did a better job of being Troy, to be honest.
Yeah, she's one of the generic advice givers of the show, I'm guessing.
I mean,
Yeah,
let's
but
be
she's
honest.
like
Troy
800
crashed the
years
ship.
old. Yes, she did.
Troy
The
crashed
first
the
time
ship,
she ever drove it.
and she crashed the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and she killed his fish.
My
Yeah,
fish.
actually, she crashes it both times that she ever drives it. She only gets to drive it twice. She crashes it both fucking times.
When was the other time she drove it?
Nemesis.
Oh, I was gonna say it's in the other movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was going to say it was and she hit the same thing, a meteor. And
No,
the same
no.
meteor, too.
She hit a planet in the first one, and the second one she crashed it into the other ship.
How do you hit a planet?
They were crashing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That one is sort of a joke, but the other one's legit.
Yeah, like the other one they piloted it into the ship. The first one, like, they separated the ship, the bottom half blew up, and kind of sent it into a dive on the planet they were over. That's how they got rid of the Enterprise D.
Too bad those inertial dampeners failed.
Which it's getting ridiculous, the number of movies that have killed Enterprises now.
Let's see.
Now they're up to 3.
Yeah, there's Star Trek 3, Star Trek Generations. You can almost count Nemesis because it got pretty fucked up in it.
Well,
And beyond.
yeah. Well, yeah, but Star Trek 6, they also were decommissioning the ship afterwards, too.
Yeah, but, I mean, it wasn't destroyed. It was in perfect working order.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know that.
Aside from the end of the movie, the ship was operable and it could support life.
I just also love the fact that at this point now, every Enterprise has appeared on screen.
Yeah, even the J. Yeah. Enterprise J. God bless you, Crewman Daniels.
Is it also a Z Cross too?
What was that?
No, but that would be hilarious. That would be like, for some Star Trek fans, that'd be like the most subtle joke ever.
If they did what?
An Enterprise, for English people, ZX.
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 ZX. I'm kind of making a Kamen Rider joke because you said J. There's Kamen Rider J and the ZX. But whatever. Joke's dead.
It's like the ZX Spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like another online reviewer where they did the in Deep Space Nine where they had the other Intrepid class ship, but all they did was reuse the footage from Voyager, so it had the same serial number as Voyager. So that he called it the Dance on Voyager's Grave. The SS Dance on Voyager's Grave.
Well, if you think about it, they're through multiple series crossing over. Kamen Rider is connected to Star Trek.
Please enlighten me on this. I'm curious as to
Yes,
know.
please do.
Yes. Please, story time. Okay, everyone gather around.
Kamen Rider crossed over
Samu.
Super Sentai, right?
Yeah.
We all know that. Super Sentai is Power Rangers.
I see where this is
crossed
going.
over with DC. DC crossed over with Marvel. Marvel Comics have multiple times crossed over with Star Trek and Star Wars.
Oh, you tried too hard, because you got to remember that the origin of Super Sentai Special in Battle J was made by Marvel.
I forget about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember Japanese Spider-Man.
Japanese Spider-Man with his giant robot. So yeah, that's even easier than you thought.
God damn.
That's what they needed to fight the Dominion.
With the giant robot?
Giant robot, transforming suits.
So, if we had a dude working on Star Trek that is ambitious enough, we could have Ichigo flying the Enterprise.
Wink, wink. Come on, Gene
Or have the
Roddenberry's Ghost,
Enterprise
do
do
something.
Well, they are casting, what is it, Star Trek Discovery? Is that the new show that's coming out?
Yeah.
I thought it was already done because it comes out. Well, at least like some of it. It comes out next month.
No, not that I heard. I heard it was going to be like fall of next year.
The last I heard, it was January. I'm going to Google it because I thought it said January.
And I actually, by the way, I would like to point out it's not in the Abrams universe.
Yeah, I love that it's in the Prime universe. Yeah, first episode date, January 2017.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
And I'm pissed off at CBS that after the pilot, you have to have their fucking app to watch it. But by God, I'll probably do it.
Dead bodies actually disappear in Fallout.
I think if you like leave a room or do something to like transition with the screen, I think they go away.
No, I was staring at it and it
just popped out. Oh,
no,
it's Bethesda. I don't think it was supposed to do that.
Yeah, Andy, they actually have changed that. The when you Google it, it does say January, but when you look at it, it says if you look up like articles, it says set to debut May of 2017.
Okay, I can live with that because I hope they're putting a little spit and polish on it. Because rumors I've been hearing, I'm pretty excited about it. And I would love to do a podcast.
Yeah, well, Brian Fuller is a great. He's right. He's done great TV stuff. In fact, he already was involved with Star Trek in the past. I was just watching. Plus, he also created Dead Like Me, which I love that show.
My friend likes it. I should give it a watch.
He also did Pushing Daisies.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah,
it was that one where the guy was able to bring back things from the dead for like a minute, and once he go past that minute, something else dies, and he can't revive
hit
them.
it again, and it does. Yeah, because he also wrote stuff for Voyager and Deep Space Nine. He also did Hannibal, and so like he's someone who actually knows sci-fi. So I'm cool with that. He did try. What I wish he had kept. They did a pilot for an update of the Munsters called Mockingbird Lane that he wrote. Was fantastic. I wish it had gotten picked up as a show because it was really, really good and really funny. But he wrote like 80. He's involved in like 81 episodes of Voyager. So maybe that's not a good or bad thing because Voyager has its problems.
Let me guess for that Monsters reboot thing. They're going to get the guy that played as Ray's brother from Everybody Loves Ray to play as Ed Monster.
Actually, the best in that was the grandfather was played by Eddie Izzard. That was the best part of that show.
You know what else I just learned about Discovery, Rob, that you might like? You may already know it. Nick Mayer wrote the second episode.
Yes, Nick Mayer is involved with it, which is another really good idea. That's like what was doing that was like bringing back. Oh gosh, who was the writer from the original Star Wars they brought back for episodes 7 and 8? I'm trying to remember his name now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That he was essentially called the one who corralled George Lucas.
I'm gonna look it up
because like George Lucas, Uncontrolled is the prequels. George Lucas Controlled and with an editor is Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back,
which is. I mean, that could explain a lot of things about those movies.
Yeah, that's what I always consider. It's him because season 1 of Next Generation is Gene Roddenberry without control.
I mean, it's pretty much season 4 of TOS if you want to think about it. Like the way it's written, the type of stories they do. It's pretty much TOS.
Next Generation. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know they've done a few fan series, which, honestly, there's a couple of really good fan series out there for TOS. But, yeah, Next Generation Season 1 is just Season 4 of TOS.
Yeah, but you want to get something that's really going to make you depressed about Discovery? It's a prequel.
Oh, I saw that it was... See, the last thing I read was it was supposed to be set, at least the first season, was supposed to be set after the Undiscovered Country. I was like, okay, cool. We have almost no knowledge of that timeline except for like the Tomed incident.
Yep.
Shit happened with the Klingons a little bit. You know, they eventually made peace.
The Enterprise C,
Enterprise B. Yeah. But, you know, pretty much that's like a big black spot. I was like, okay, cool. There's so much you can do here. 10 years before TOS. What are you going to do? Talk about Captain Archer?
Well, no. He's like 80 years before.
Oh, no, I just mean talk about him. Just like, oh, he was so good. You know, I know he would. I mean, he could be on there.
It annoys me because it means that every time they're trying to do something now is that they want to do the Klingons as bad guys again. That's what it tells me.
I mean, they are honestly so much better as allies than enemies. I don't like the Klingons as enemies.
I agree with that. It's just one of those things where I'm like, they're fine as they were fine as enemies when you considered it under the era that they were written as enemies.
Yeah, like in TOS, that's all you knew them as was enemies. Okay, but I mean, even just a little bit after that, they were making peace, and then TNG, they were at peace. They were staunch allies, which the Organians told them would happen, but they didn't believe them. You know, it's a whole other thing. And TNG, DS9, Voyager, they're allies. Then we go back to Enterprise, they're enemies, which I understand the time frame, but it's been done.
Well, what I always liked was they were allies, but they did not assimilate them into the Federation. They were still the
Klingon they weren't Empire. Part of the Federation. It's just, you don't hurt us, we won't hurt you. If we need help, we'll ask each other.
Well, I mean, not Next Generation. The whole Khitomer Conference at the end of Star Trek VI was the whole treaty that...
I mean, yeah, it was like the beginnings of it.
Well, no, because even in... Oh, God, we're getting way too far into to Star Trek tangents.
I'm good the beginning... The other guys are.
I've already renamed this to Star Trek...
Season 3 or 4 of Deep Space Nine, I think it was 4, when 4 finally showed up.
Yeah,
when they were, one of the things that Garon was doing was setting aside the Khitomer Accords, because the Khitomer Accords are their treaty.
Yeah, but I don't. It didn't happen in that movie. That was
but it was.
But it didn't happen then.
That was which is why I always found it interesting that that's where Worf's parents were supposed to have died. They were at the same planet. I was like,
I never understood. I was like, how the fuck old is he then? If they were there, it really couldn't have happened much after that, to be honest.
It wasn't. It was just the same planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get Worf's grandfather, and that doesn't look that old either. So, when I was a kid, things just didn't add up with that. I was like, what is going on here?
Well, Worf was supposed to be like 2 or 3, right? Wasn't when his father died?
Whoa, you broke up. You were unintelligible.
Wasn't Worf only like 2 or 3 when his parents died?
Yeah, he was old enough to remember things, but he was still a very little child.
Oh, I didn't remember any.
Yeah, he can remember his parents and stuff, but he was just like a small child. His brother was a baby.
I thought he didn't know his brother existed.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He was that young that he says he can remember his parents and stuff, but he didn't know he had a brother
until that episode of Next Generation.
Hey, good episode. I like Sins of the Father.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a good episode. I just was thinking that wasn't until another episode of Next Generation. Because Sins of the Father. That's Sins of the Father is the one where he ends up being. I can't remember the term they used.
The Officer Exchange Program.
Where they ended up like.
Excommunicated.
Is that what they called it?
Yeah, excommunication.
Yeah, and then
Just
that lasted
Catholics.
until Redemption, if I remember right.
Yeah, so the end of the next season.
Yeah.
So they had like a year of, oh my god, and then DS9 happened.
Well, we're already going on to an hour of footage here.
Had to been an hour already?
Really?
Yeah, it's like, almost like 10-2.
No, well, it's not that bad then.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I feel like I've been controlling too much conversation.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's just that.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I think Rob and I put together, we seriously could talk about Star Trek and tangents and how shit ties together for probably a good 2 or 3 more hours.
I could do the same thing
Yeah,
about
but remember this, Andy. You're the one editing.
You see, I've already got all that figured out. All I got to do is like click 3 buttons, and everything's just like I like it. I've got my Audacity set up. I got the right plugins I need, and I'm just like, okay, select all, do this, and listening to it, I can tell, the audio's good. Like everybody's at a good, solid level. So yeah, I just wait for the computer to process it.
Oh, well, let's just, should we wrap it up?
We might as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I would enjoy thoroughly talking about it, but we probably don't need to make a 2 or 3 hour long podcast.
No, we don't.
At least not this time, right?
Yes, not this time. Now, stay tuned for March when the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reboot movie comes out. And
Oh,
we'll have a
God.
3-hour podcast about that.
Well, let's just put it to you this way. Just be glad. Oh, man. I'm going to have to actually go and see that, aren't I?
Oh, it's going to be terrible, but I'm going to go see it. I'm going into it knowing I'm going to want to take a cyanide tablet.
What I need to do is find a showing where it'll be like no one there, and I can just like MST3K it, and no one will care.
I'll just yell at the screen like Hubert Farnsworth, "You sons of bitches!"
I don't know. I may be more like the I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
You don't have to see it. You could pirate it, and then you wouldn't have to pay to see it, and you could still riff on it.
Ooh, we could do a
You
grip.
could.
We could do a group riff. We all see
Yeah.
it. We all suffer.
Although the theater here does have recliners, and they are quite comfortable.
You have recliners?
Yeah, there's one near here that's like that. Like, it's not like a lazy boy, but like the back will lean back, and it's all leather, and it's IMAX. It's nice.
No, these are all leather. They're recliners. They have an automatic control on the side of them.
Oh, man.
They're assigned seats too, so you don't have to what seat you have going.
Yeah,
in.
Really?
that's how our IMAX is. You get seat like 283 or whatever, and that's where you go.
Dude,
That's why when I put up my photo of my tickets for Rogue One this Thursday, it has my seat numbers on it and everything, so I know exactly. I don't have to get there like an hour early to get a good seat.
I might not be able to see that when it first comes up. You got to at least tell me if it's good. Don't obviously no spoilers, but just let me know if it's good.
I can tell you already. I'm pretty sure it's good.
Oh, I'm sure it will be, but there's varying levels because good is like an onion. It's layered.
God fucking damn it.
Yes! And the sad thing is I worked it in, but it fit. It wasn't just like a square peg in a round hole. It actually fit the conversation.
It's like going on a maze. If you have to get to the center... I'm sorry, I was watching Westworld. You have to get to the center of the maze, and then you know that's where everything's good. Yeah.
Everything's 47.
47.
Oh, yeah.
I need scissors.
47? I thought it was 42.
I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 47.
Wait. Are you talking about Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yep.
It's 42.
I was just talking about theory that every number equals something. I thought it was 47.
Oh, I don't know. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the ultimate answer was 42. The ultimate question was what is 6... Isn't the ultimate question like what is 6 times 5 or something like that too? It's like because it's not right. Like the answer is not correct. But the ultimate question was like what do you get when you multiply 9 times 6? And then the ultimate answer is 42 because Douglas Adams is weird.
I need to see that. I've honestly never seen it or read it.
The movie's really good, but I bet the book is a shit ton better.
Well, Douglas Adams, every time they put it into a new medium, he actually was involved with writing it because he wrote the movie mostly before he died. He considered it a new version of it every time he retold it because there was the radio drama, there's the book, and then there's the movie.
I might have to look up the radio drama because those are always done really well. Like the British and the Japanese do a shit ton of radio drama.
Yep.
I just realized something. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just realized something. We never talked about part 2.
Kind of did.
No, we didn't.
No, we seriously stopped at the end of part 1. Rob and I went off on our tangent, and now we're here, and we've never mentioned part 2 of this.
Part 2, they save Picard. End of it!
Well, kind of. That's actually most of the episodes. Just Riker's like, I'm better than you now, and that's it.
Well, the problem is if me and you, and I know right now because I'm going to stop this before I get too far into it, if we start talking about part 2, me and you are going to start talking about Wolf 359.
I know.
And that's going to be a really long discussion on what that means for Star Trek.
And personally, like I said, I'm down for it. But, I'll go with the group consensus on this.
Prepare yourself, Isamu. We're going to be sitting here for another 54 minutes.
Okay, so part 2.
Set for us to school.
Okay, so pretty much leaving off where what happened in part 1, Picard gets captured by the Borg and gets a really nice earpiece.
You know what's funny about it though is as much as you think the story would be about Picard with him being captured and assimilated, the story is about Riker.
Yeah,
it is all about Riker.
Because
there's a little bit about curing, like the point of it is to cure Picard, but it's more about how Riker deals with being captain, being forced to be captain, and dealing with that one girl who wants to be his commander.
Shelby.
Who ends up being a captain before Riker is.
And it's heavily alluded that she dies.
And didn't Riker also get promoted to have his own command or something?
In Nemesis. In Nemesis, he goes to the Titan.
He gets a good book series out of it, too.
I guess I'm jumping an entire series here.
You're jumping a lot.
Then you could even talk about his transporter clone who ends up joining the Maquis.
Let me bring it up real fast.
What have I done?
was thinking about that earlier. By the rules of Star Trek, that should not have been able to happen.
Thomas Riker?
Yes. Where was the matter that made the person there? Because even in the explanation in the show, in the graphic, it shows the 2 transporter beams. Mm-hmm. One makes it to the ship. That's the matter that got beamed up from the planet. Where was the matter that made the other Riker?
Okay, so let's start this discussion. When you're getting into a matter transporter, are you actually walking into a disintegrator and your clone is actually showing up on the other side?
I mean, we can get into that, but it still needs matter to make something.
Well, no. This is how it works. With the matter transporter, yes, it is taking your matter and putting it somewhere else, but it may also be taking a little bit of it and just kind of putting it into storage. And apparently, it must have collected so much it made a clone.
The way I was always under the impression that the transporters worked is they broke down and scanned all of your physical matter and then recreated it on the other end with its own storage of, like, cells. Like, it 3D prints you just on the other side. And
now you're walking into a death trap and you die every time you use it.
Yes.
I mean, and they brought that up in Enterprise. The explanation from the first time up until Enterprise was it's a matter energy transfer device, but it turns all of your matter and energy into mass amounts of data, and it transfers that data to the target that the transporter selects, and then it reassembles it on a quantum level. And Enterprise brought all this up, saying, is it making a clone? What is it doing? And I don't think that episode actually really explains it, other than the guy that made the transporter did a lot of arguing. I can't remember. I haven't seen that episode in a while.
You know what's so funny is, like, you look at how the transporter is supposed to work. How many episodes can you think of, without really trying too hard, of transporter shenanigans were the reason for the episode?
At least every episode from every show would make up at least half of a series of one show.
Yeah.
There's many times.
There's that many. There's transporters that got people stuck in the pattern buffer in Next Generation. There's ones where it turned them into kids. There's ones where it merged two people.
Yes.
There's ones where it. What am I thinking of? There's another one from.
It changed their gender.
I don't remember ever doing that.
I don't think it's ever actually done that.
No. There's also the one where they
made the evil Kirk.
Made the what?
The evil Kirk.
They split him into two personalities. Yeah. That's right.
Let me guess. The evil one had a goatee.
No.
Oh, they made the. Wasn't it that how they made the really advanced Borg and Voyager? Was the nanoprobes with the mobile emitter on the transporter?
Yes, it was. It was in the transporter. They did that. That's how they went to the mirror universe, because of an ion storm. See, they've done that.
So they make their own rules and then promptly break them if the plot of the episode makes it work.
Yep.
Yeah, and even though it's a very sophisticated piece of technology, at least in the original Star Trek, it would break down like every other episode.
Okay, so getting back to the episode in question here.
Yes, back to part 2 of Best of Both Worlds.
When Data starts, when he go and capture, when the Enterprise goes back into the Borg spaceship thing to go get Picard and put him back onto the ship, I honestly thought that it's going to be they're going to be using Picard's body as kind of like a transporter location emitter thing.
Like they were going to get onto his pattern and just lock on with that?
Yeah.
That was why they had to take the shuttle, because the Borg had put up an electromagnetic field that was not allowing them to transport through.
Yeah,
so
I basically
they
had to take the shuttle.
Yeah, basically Riker's whole plan was blow a bunch of fireworks up in their face and then sneak a shuttle through. Which that's essentially what it did.
For honestly how like almost, I don't want to say goofy. It wasn't goofy, but like this episode compared to the prior episode, part 1, this plays out sort of like a radio serial of a superhero. Riker's almost like Indiana Jones, sort of. And like everything he did was actually a good idea, because he realized Picard knew everything about them, but he knew how Picard worked. And that's why he separated the saucer to shoot the fireworks, because he knew Picard wouldn't look at the saucer section, because that's where all the civilians are. he would focus on where Riker is, the Star Drive section.
Nope, you're not right. You know why? You know why he separated it? Because that was the plan that Shelby proposed in the first episode.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That he knew that.
Right, but he focused. What he did was he made him think that he was going to do that exact plan, which is not what he did. He started the plan and did.
That makes sense. And I mean, that still plays into what I was saying, that he knew Picard well enough that he knew what he was going to do, and he could pretty much play him for a chump.
Yeah, and then Technobabble happened, and then
they have to tech the tech.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to bring something up.
And then, do you know why it's O'Brien that's helping them at the end and not Geordi?
Yeah, because LeVar Burton was having surgery and he couldn't really film the episode.
So they had to come up with a reason as to why he was there. So it was always like, it's kind of like a transporter. Really?
Even being a kid, I was like, how does that work? How is basically a really advanced radio transmission anything like a matter energy transporting device?
Because we needed to justify why the transporter guy was there.
And I'll have to say, it was almost a Deus Ex Machina, but Picard probably has to have enough willpower to use at least 10 Green Lantern rings. He overpowered his bored self to tell Data, sleep.
Am I the only one who aside from knowing Picard's going to be better at the end of it, because I've seen stuff that happens afterward, while it was going on, I thought a part of Picard was still in there because of how he was still referring to him as number one.
Yeah.
They
did do a good job of showing that the Borg haven't completely taken him over.
There was a scene in the second part where they stick the flashlight in his ear and then turn his skin white. If you watch, a tear goes out of his eye.
Yeah.
Where you actually see that he's actually still there.
Okay.
Which it goes back to what we were saying in real life before, that they didn't really want to do the assimilation thing, at least at this time. It was more.
By the way, I didn't notice that tear until I just watched it for this. I hadn't noticed it.
I actually didn't notice it until I bought the Blu-ray back in 2013, when it came out in theaters as a feature-length thing, which I recommend to anybody that does listen to this, watch it on the Blu-ray as a feature-length, because it's really more made to be watched that way, even though we mentioned a few things about it. It's one flowing narrative compared to a two-part thing.
That they most likely watch on Hulu or Netflix.
Yeah.
I had to watch it on Netflix.
You can't get good quality out of it. But if you're going to watch it and you enjoy it, get the best quality.
Yeah, which I think Netflix does air the Blu-ray versions now, because I've noticed...
no.
As of
it is the remastered.
Quality looks really good.
Well,
it is the remastered one.
Well, I'm watching Netflix on a 3DS because it's somebody else's account. Yeah, and sometimes the audio qualities on the 3DS can be either good. Somebody brought their Geiger counter on set, or what do you say? I can't hear you. I got the volume on full.
I'm telling you right now, the Hulu is definitely original airing stuff, because it didn't look pretty.
Yeah, if you do watch this on a streaming service and you have, say, a good internet connection, like an HD device, watch it on Netflix if you don't own the Blu-ray of it. It's worth it.
If people aren't using your Netflix account.
Yes.
Don't pay for it.
Oh, Rob, I want to see if you noticed this. Do you remember the scene where Guinan came into the ready room and she, kind of ear-tugged Riker into a conversation, and she's telling him, you got to let go of Picard and blah, blah, blah. You remember that scene?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Where he was like, I'm kind of too busy for you, and she sits down anyways.
Yeah, she's just like, fuck you. Do you remember, it was a passing statement, and all the years I've watched this, I've never put these two things together. She tells him, the crew is, they're worried, they think they're going to die, blah, 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 and Riker's like, well, that's not an unfair assumption. And she tells him that if a man wants to die, if a man wants to die tomorrow, he'll probably find a way to make it happen.
Right.
You remember?
Yeah.
End of part 2. Riker is halfway through saying engaged to ram the Borg ship, and kill himself. And Data cuts him off mid-word. And I was just like, that is probably the best little subtle thing I've ever seen in this show. That even through all that conversation and stuff and the clarity he supposedly got, he wasn't that different and she knew it. Because, he effectively would have killed himself the next day. And, I just thought it was a little piece of good.
That's an interesting thought, yeah. But you notice the one thing, though, is the order to ram the ship, it does not have the weight that his order to fire at the end of Part 1 did.
Oh, no. I mean, that's why I think Best of Both Worlds Part 1, out of any Star Trek, is the best cliffhanger ever. You get those 3 words at the very end, Mr. Worf, fire, and you don't know what's going to happen. You have no idea how this is going to turn out. And you get that awesome music.
And you get that swoops up around into his face to look at it.
It pans across the bridge, showing everybody's faces, and then Riker. And then, it's just like, ran the ship. Engage. And, he doesn't get engage out.
All you have is Wesley looking like, I don't want to die.
I haven't even had sex yet because it didn't allude to it in that one episode in season 2.
He needed the Space Banjo song.
Yep. What was that stupid thing's name? Snurgles?
Nurgle.
That's what he needed.
Snurgle. From Robot Chicken. Yeah, the Space Banjo song.
And I mean, this is going to be just a purely fan statement. One of the better Voyager episodes, Death Wish, with the other Q that wants to die.
Yeah.
And they have, the quote unquote, well, I don't want to say trial, but it was like a law thing. And
they brought back Riker?
Yeah. And Q even said if it wasn't for Riker here, the Borg would have assimilated your entire Federation. I just liked it as a fan thing, Because, if it wasn't him, it wouldn't have happened.
Probably not, because, and wasn't the whole thing like that Q had saved his grandfather or something like that? And
it's like his grandfather or his great-grandfather or something. He was in the Civil War.
Right.
Old Iron Boots, Riker.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah.
God, that show. There's literally like 10 episodes of Voyager that I like.
I can think of ones that I don't mind watching, but none of them I can actually think of.
I mean, there's a few that I do like. I like Death Wish. I like the Q. I mean, at least 2 of the Q episodes. I like Death Wish. I like Q and the Gray. The Killing Game Part 1 and 2. Those are pretty good.
They're okay.
They really should have done more with the Hirogen, but that's a whole other. But going back to Best of Both Worlds. Let's go ahead and shoot the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Wolf 359.
Which I found out was an actual star.
Mm-hmm. And like in the show, it's actually not like, thinking astronomically, it's not terribly far from here.
Yep.
Comparative.
It was one where I almost feel like they took that one and went like, what is the nearest star that has a cool name? When they were writing it.
Because I think technically Alpha Centauri is the nearest star, if I remember correctly. I have to look it up.
Yeah.
I think it is. But that doesn't really sound cool. The Battle of Alpha Centauri, yeah.
It would now if they actually showed the new name that the International Astronomy Union changed.
What did they name it? It is different, but I can't remember what it is.
It's very similar to the name it was before because it still has I think Centaurus in it.
Omega Centaurus?
No, it doesn't have a Greek letter. It's completely moving away from the Greek.
Oh, I give up.
Alpha Centauri. And it brought up Alpha Centauri.
Rigel Centaurus.
That sounds... Honestly, that sounds better.
That would have worked, but they actually... So, Wolf 359, which not only has the main character from the next series that would happen, it literally is... Everything you see in Star Trek can be seen as pre or post Wolf 359.
Yeah, it's pretty. I hate to judge up memories like this, but it's pretty. Wolf 359 is like the 9/11 of Star Trek.
Essentially, because I mean, it creates that. You see eventually Starfleet become more of a military installation. You see the creation of actual warship in the Defiant.
Mm-hmm.
Which you have that. You have probably the whole reason the Dominion War in Deep Space Nine is even started and goes the way it does is because of that. But you know, the one thing I was amazed, two things that they did with that I really wish they had done something, is I don't remember at any point in the rest of Season 4 of Next Generation, which would have been because Part 2 was the premiere Season 4, where there was ever an issue because the fleet was so decimated.
Yeah, let me think here. I know they mentioned it later on. I'm not sure if they did in 4. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because in Season 4, and this doesn't directly tie into your question, but I know you'll understand why I'm saying. In Season 4, you get introduced to the Cardassians, and apparently the Federation was at war with them. So how are they going to have a whole fleet fighting a gigantic-ass Borg cube while they're also fighting Cardassians on a very wide front? And
in fact,
like you said, that's not even mentioned that the fleet is in any kind of like low state of numbers.
Yeah, the only thing you get is Shelby saying at the end of the episode that we'll get the fleet back up to power within the year. And I was
it was like 3 or 4 years before it actually got back up to what it was supposed to be.
Right, but it never became an issue for the show. Like, it was never like, we lost so many ships, and like the Romulans were like, oh, they lost all these ships, let's take a shot at them. Or like, now you could argue that the Cardassians did it because they were so depleted. That's why that war happens.
Does it ever actually say how long the war was?
You know the things though is you're going to have to check that one because I think the war is going to have happened before that because O'Brien fought in that war.
Yeah,
and he was on the Enterprise. He wasn't on the Enterprise in the war.
And he even said that's how I got the gold uniform, which he had a red one in the beginning, in the first episode of Star Trek Next Generation, but it's not explicitly stated that's the same character. You kind of know it is, and there's no reason it wouldn't be, but it's not explicitly stated. And it would have, like, going with all that, it would have to be sometime between Season 1 and Season 4.
All right, so I'm going to have to look it up. Sorry.
I'm on Memory Alpha looking it up myself while we're talking. But, yeah, they don't even mention in that episode anything about it. And I'm trying to remember the next time they do. I know at some point in the show they do mention the fleet is still being rebuilt.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but I also know that I think the war was supposed to have gone for like, no, maybe I don't think. Hold on, let me see. Well, that works. 50s. I always got to remember like what year. What years were supposed to be what seasons?
Season 1 is 2363 and it ends in 2364.
Okay, so that was 2360. Okay, because the war was supposed to have started back in 2348. Now the treaty doesn't get finalized until like 2370, like because that was the whole thing. The treaty was finalized during Next Generation. That one I remember.
And like you were saying earlier, I mean, that could have been a lot of good episodes, or even for TNG, their first real arc. Because TNG had no real arcs other than like Data trying to become more human and stuff like that. Subtle arcs, but not like DS9 arcs. And that could have been a really good one.
And that got serialized. Once they got to the second and third seasons of DS9, that show became heavily serialized.
Which I'm okay with that because, we got some really good stories out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's Moore. Ronald Moore is the best sci-fi writer out there, I think.
I can't disagree with that.
As far as television. Yeah. So, I don't know. Like I said, we really could. We could go for another 2 hours on this. That's just the way we are.
I put in the description, a.k.a. Andy and Nossan talk about Star Trek while Isamu and Frozen Traveler start falling asleep.
What? Photon torpedoes? Yeah, I like photon torpedoes. I know you two noticed this. Frozen and Isami. There's a running theory. You've probably heard Rob and I talking about it. The trope that Riker is always drunk. Have you ever heard us mention that at all?
That he's the functioning alcoholic.
No.
It's almost like a fan theory or a trope that Riker is constantly drunk. He's a functioning alcoholic, and the end of this episode cements it for me. Part 2, they put all the Borg to sleep, and Shelby beams an away team over, and they're like, "Hey, there's a surge because all of the Borg are trying to do this at the same time." And we could probably deactivate it and, averted an explosion if you want us to. Riker's just like, no, let it blow up. I'm going to get us out of here. And, and it's even directly stated, we could probably use this to build a weapon to fight them. And Riker doesn't do it. And to me, that cemented that, yes, Riker's a functioning alcoholic. That is the worst decision that could have ever been made.
although I was a bit confused on that.
Yeah, it was one of those ones. The episode was running short. We probably couldn't come up with a longer.
It's like
a running
dude,
log. Sorry,
it's a free target. Make it explode. Make it do something. I'm bored of all the talking.
To the next episode and just they could have finished this episode pretty much exactly the same way. Just I know they made the ship explode for a sense of satisfaction and triumph. But, they really could have done something else with it, especially going into Trek lore. I'm pretty sure Section 31 wasn't happy about that, Rob.
Yeah, although the funny thing is if you think about it, I would almost consider the episode Next Family. Would you consider that a third part of the same series, or the same show, or would you consider that a new story?
I would consider it an unofficial third part, an epilogue, because it is directly dealing with what happens in these 2 episodes, but it's not Best of Both Worlds Part 3.
But that's the closest I can ever remember to, except for cliffhangers, where the events of the previous episode directly went into the beginning of the next episode.
I think that's the only time, to be honest.
Yeah. Without being a cliffhanger. Without, like I said, without being that.
Which, honestly, I don't really like that episode that much.
It's not. It's a good episode, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like Star Trek in the bad way.
Yeah. But it is kind of a necessary, because going into Part 2 again really quickly, one of the things I really like about it is when it ends with Picard back in his ready room and he has the bandages on his face, they don't have him have to have a flashback or some long speech. He just has that look in his eye when he looks out the window. And that's just very well subtle done, and it just kind of ends it where you're like, yeah, this is done. They're gone. But it's never going to be exactly right or exactly good again.
Yeah, pretty much you'll never go home again in a way.
Right. Something has been lost probably permanently, and it shows that it has, because Picard's a different character the rest of the show. Not substantially different, but he is different.
Yeah, you can see it in his character that he's not let's look at this as an RPG for just a split second. Before this, his explorer trait was probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, 8 to 9. 8 to 9, easy, because he was an explorer. After this, it kind of went back down to where explorer would be maybe 5 to 6, maybe, and his fighter, warrior, defender, whatever you might want to call it, trait would be right about the same. Yeah.
Tank.
And, you can easily see that it's not the same. He's more willing to fight and defend if he has to, rather than try to negotiate.
Right, which is why it was with the last 2 episodes that Next Generation did with the Borg, because they didn't, I might be wrong, they only do the 4. There's only the 4 Borg episodes of Next Generation. There's Q-Who, there's this one, there's the I-Borg, and then Descent, right?
Yeah, but that's 5 of them.
Two-parters I'm counting as a continuous story.
Oh, okay.
Because if you want to be technical, then it's 6. Because there's 2 Best of Both Worlds, 2 Descents, and then 1 and 1. But they never, and that's why I really liked that they did First Contact, was because I would have loved to see the episode where he has to face the Borg the same way. Because even when they bring the Borg onto the ship in that other episode and then in Descent, he's not really dealing with the Borg. He's dealing with an individual, and he doesn't. I don't feel like he acts right in either of those episodes, if that makes sense. Dealing with the same ones that does do that.
Like he's. I kind of understood it because when they first brought Hugh on, he was just nothing but angry and let it die until Guinan talked to him. And, he finally came around. And I don't really remember Descent all that well, but it seemed like he was more indifferent towards it, whatever its name was. Because I don't think he was just visibly angry, but it seemed like he didn't care other than we need to make sure it can't hurt us.
Well, then you compare that to how he treats them in First Contact. Is really
First Contact is like complete 180 of that. He's just ready to kill every single one of them if he has to do it with his bare hands.
Right, and in fact, he doesn't. I'm stealing some other people's words on this, but he doesn't change really until he sees the Borg that was a former officer of his. It's like up to that point,
Hawk?
he still has no, not Hawk.
Oh, the one in the hallway. Yeah.
The one in the holodeck. The one in the hallway, and then the one in the holodeck that he starts shooting, and then he goes up to bash it in the head with the gun, and she's like, "I think you got it," and then they were like, "Yeah."
Which a lot of people were hoping that particular scene would answer a few questions about the Borg, and it really, all it did was really further the argument.
Although the scene where he finally does break, because it's at that point where he would be losing his third ship, that he finally ends up breaking. Which
I think he did that scene very well.
Yeah, he did, and it's kind of interesting because he will not lose to them again. He feels like even though they won it, he lost.
And it's bad, but Enterprise messed this up too, because at the end of First Contact, you're like, okay, Picard got all the Borg and blah, blah, blah. Oh, here comes Enterprise.
Oh, Enterprise.
Which, honestly, the episode of Enterprise Regeneration it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. It's not good at all, but it's just a guilty pleasure to watch. I know you guys haven't seen it. It's Samu and Frozen. I know we're going.
I haven't seen it. Andy, I haven't seen it either.
You haven't seen it?
I just know it exists.
Okay, quick recap. In Archer's timeline, they find some Borg and some Borg components that got frozen in the Arctic after the Enterprise fired the quantum torpedoes in First Contact.
Oh, okay.
And so, Tier 3 Borg get revived. They assimilate 4 or 5 people. Then they take over a ship and start assimilating it. And Archer and Reed manage to retune their really, really, really weak phase pistols to fight the Borg and blow up their assimilated ship.
Oh, so they nerfed them even more. Okay.
Yes. The only good thing in that episode is the very, very end. And it actually proves a fan theory that in Q was actually trying to help the Federation. And this actually cements it. The very end of the episode, T'Pol is talking to Archer. And she's like, they managed to get a subspace message out before we destroyed their ship. And it was pointed towards the Delta Quadrant. And I honestly can't remember who's talking to who, but the next part of the conversation was, well, it's a long way to the Delta Quadrant, so we probably don't have to worry about it. And yeah, that was T'Pol that said that, and Archer just said, well, what? That just means they're going to be here in the 24th century, which, ties that together. That is the only good part of the episode.
Oh, okay.
So, should we move on to final thoughts? Please make him.
Sure.
Please make it short.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not going to add any final thoughts. I'm going to let everyone else do because I feel like I've already said enough on my piece.
Yeah, I'll jump on that boat as well.
As for final thoughts, I'm more than probably going to be watching more Star Trek. I hear The Next Generation is good. I've seen some Voyager, and I might watch that, but I don't think I'm going to go as deep as either of you do.
Well, I've had 30 years experience, so it's just part of me now. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah. Once you've watched it for like 15 or 20 years, then you'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember that specific thing, and I used to read the books all the time as a kid, and all that stuff.
And as for me, I don't think I'm going to be going back to watching this. I might see the episodes with John Delancey in it, but that's about it.
Those are really fun episodes. Even if you don't like Star Trek, you probably like it just for the comical.
Yeah.
And they do kind of fit together. Like, if you watch them in order, they kind of have a continual theme story. Because there's always that theory that they wrote Q's entire point right from the start. I know it's not true, but they're like, because you can kind of see where he's teaching the lesson the entire way through it. But, yeah, just watching those are great. I mean, I don't know if I'd watch the Deep Space Nine one, even though it's funny watching Cisco punch Q in the face. But
I know about that. I know about that through Linkara.
That he punches Q in the face.
It's like, you hit me! Yeah, because Picard doesn't.
He's like, I'm not Picard.
I'm not Picard.
Oh, that episode.
But yeah, I'm not going to go back to this. Maybe just to watch the Q episodes, but that's as far as I'm going to go. If you're wondering why, I'm going to redirect you to our MLP podcast thing. There's no why there.
Hey, John Delancey's in at least a little bit of it, so streams.
He's a main villain, reformed villain.
Well, I didn't know exactly how many episodes he's in.
He also uses
5.
If you ever watch when he's in those episodes, his disappearing effect is the Q effect, like the bright light.
It is.
What is his name in that?
Discord.
Okay, I want to see it.
The season 2 premiere, 2-parter. Season 3, I believe, episode 11.
Well, I think they do the whole, for most of them, the same provision he had in Star Trek, which is in some way, most of the time, his character's name has to be in the title of the episode. So if you see any episode that has the word Discord in it, he's probably in it.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yeah. That's the joke with John Delancey. His character's name is always in the title of the episode, with the exception of that one Voyager episode.
There's the one Voyager episode, Death Wish. There's Encounter at Farpoint, and All Good Things.
All Good Things,
and I think that's it.
Yeah, the premieres don't count. Premieres and finales don't count.
Okay, yeah, then there's that one Voyager episode.
Alright, so let's give us our usual end title card.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, insert the music if you can here.
Is it that bad?
No.
No.
You're pretty close.
Oh, I'm completely tone deaf, so I have no idea.
You're pretty close.
Close enough that you could make out what you were saying, yeah.
Awesome.
So, this has been...
Oh my god. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So... Hey, at least I didn't bite off your head. Okay. So this has been Riders of the Lost Zord coverage on Star Trek. This has been Frozen Traveler.
Isamu?
Nossan.
And this is Andy. And remember, an onion is always an onion.
Jeez. Good night, everybody.
It's my catchphrase.
Yeah, might as well be. Goodbye.